I've always believed our industry from a wealth management standpoint is really the combination of kind of the insurance approach to risk management and the investment approach to wealth management or building one's overall portfolio. And with my background in insurance, a lot of it has been just incorporating it in pieces because I left insurance and joined the investment world, which was so investment centric. And the solution to all of life's problems were, well, we got to save more, invest more, achieve a certain rate of return, this and that. And when you really take a step back, my view was, well, I don't want to show up to a golf course with just a driver and a putter, but I want to show up with a full bag of clubs because every situation is different.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to CBS Spotlight. If you're here by mistake, you're in the right place now. I'm Eric Alvarado, along with my new co-host. We call him Teddy Ballgame, Mr. Ted Hikes, and we are your friendly guides to this world of insurance and wealth management. And today we have a very special guest. His name is Aaron Anderson. He is the president of Fit Wealth Management. Aaron, welcome. Did I miss anything?
No, great. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for jumping on with us today. We really appreciate your time. Ed, when you're ready, why don't you go ahead and fire away with the first question?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And Aaron, thanks for joining us. This is my initial foray into CBS Spotlight. So I'm personally excited because I get to work with Aaron on a regular basis. I think where we'd like to start is just tell us a little bit about Fit Wealth Management and how the firm exists today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Well, I started in the industry working for a large insurance company. And so I had no real formal background. I jumped in very fortunate, met a gentleman in college who got me into the industry. I knew nothing about it, but jumped in with both feet. And it was a great decision. And I was with this company for about 5.5 years, and I jumped into the RIA space, so registered investment advisor, owned by a bank. And the bank had actually acquired two investment firms, very, very investment centric. So investments were the end all be all of life. And here I am as an insurance hack coming in as a certified financial planner, talking about insurance and things that frankly were frowned upon with these two legacy firms. And the reason I mention that is because it's actually where I met my current business partner, who was an analyst and for one of the firms. And prior to that, he was an analyst for Invesco, ran a couple of mutual funds. So needless to say, when we had conversations, they were very much, what's more important? Is it investments? Is it planning? What's more important? And for several years, we had this discussion many, many times. I was with that firm for about 5 years and left and went and did that with another bank that had acquired two different investment firms, two different RIAs. And so I'd been in the industry for about 10, 11 years at the time and really became very disenchanted with the approach to wealth management because the investment firms were always touting how there was no conflict of interest, no conflict of interest. Yet the problem is, if you're owned by a public company, your conflict of interest, your loyalties lie to the shareholder. And they were very unwilling to talk about all things wealth. If it pertained to investments, absolutely. They were very good, very disciplined at it. But if it came to insurance, the approach was, oh, we don't believe in it. We don't, you shouldn't buy it. Conflict of interest all day long. And, over the course of doing this, over the, 10, 15 years that I was involved in that, I'd been to, unfortunately, a handful of client services and things where insurance would have been a big difference maker. And it just dawned on me, how can you call yourself a fiduciary if you're not willing to be or willing to address all areas of one's wealth? And you can't neglect insurance and you can't neglect investments, among other things. And long story short, my business partner and I, Brian, We stayed in contact when I was with the second firm. He actually started Fit Asset Management as a hedge fund with his background in investing and everything. He started it as a hedge fund. And, the conversations that we had over the years about what's more important, planning or investments, or wealth management investments, kind of came to fruition when his parents had to sell a family home in Massachusetts because of a bad advisor they had through a large institution, through the financial crisis. So many years later, it really came to fruition about the importance of really integrating both. I wouldn't say there's one more important than the other. Rather, it's integrating both. And so we partnered together in September of 2018. The firm originally was started as Fit Asset Management. We do business as Fit Wealth Management, so one and the same. But that's really the foundation of it. So we partnered together, partly from his need to kind of broaden out from just the investment approach, and part of my need to get out of the bank-owned, the publicly owned RIA space, and really just to see if I could do what I thought I could do in terms of helping people and do it the right way without any kind of requirement to sell a particular product or sell a certain amount or cross-sell different bank products or things like that. I wanted to jump out and see if I could really approach wealth management independently and just have no conflicts of interest from that standpoint.
That's quite the path to get where you guys are today. I'd love to ask you about the name Fit. What is the genesis of the name Fit?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because we get asked that all the time. So FIT actually stands for Fundamentals Integrated with Technicals, which describes our investment approach. And at some point, I'd have to bring my business partner in to really dive in deep to the genesis of that name. But FIT stands for Fundamentals Integrated with Technicals. And what we found in working together, working with clients through the years, is FIT can cross many barriers. We all work in the wealth management business and we deal with wealth, but fitness crosses those barriers. It comes down to mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, all those different areas of fitness, which tie into wealth at some point. And so that it really kind of took on its own meaning when we started to approach things from that standpoint, because you can have wealth, but if you're not well to be able to enjoy it, or there's something blocking that, it really crossed those barriers. And it wasn't intended when we started that's what it was going to go to. But that's really, at the end of the day, it stands for Fundamentals Integrated with Technicals, but it crosses so many other barriers of life because wealth touches so many different areas of your life. And if you don't have the mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, all those different areas, if you're not fit in those areas, there's something out of whack, there's something not firing, and your wealth that you've accumulated is not going to be able to serve you the way that you intended or wanted.
True. Very good response.
Aaron, that's such an interesting response because obviously you and I have had several conversations, and I've always thought of fit in such a narrow kind of a narrow definition, but the way you described it is so much broader than I've thought about it. So I appreciate you sharing that. I'm curious to know, you guys have had this tremendous amount of growth over the last, 4 or 5 years. I'd love to know kind of what does that growth look like, and what do you believe are kind of the engine, or is the engine that's driving that growth?
That's a great question because we ask ourselves that all the time. I mean, when I partnered with Brian in 2018, collectively we had about $5 million, $6 million in assets under management. And last year, December of 23, jumping into 24, we crossed the barrier at 100 million. We registered with the SEC, and we're currently at about 130 million in assets. And we've been very blessed because it's been organic. It's been through referrals and just doing a lot of the right things. The one area that I think I've always struggled with in the industry is, finding your niche. What is your niche? And I never really had a niche per se. When I was at one of the bank-owned RIAs, I started what we called emerging wealth. So many wealth advisors out there have minimums of $1 million plus to manage. And, being in Colorado, there's many small business owners and real estate investing is very strong. And many people's wealth is tied up in very illiquid assets. And so there was oftentimes not the traditional $1 million of assets to manage, but I always approached it from at some point, though, there will be a liquidity event. And I want to be the one with the foot in the door to take that opportunity. And that's really kind of been our approach. We all have stated minimums of people that we work with. And at the end of the day, our minimum has been, will you value the work that is going to go into this relationship? Because when you're managing wealth, you're managing one of the most intimate aspects of one's life. And we take that very seriously. And if you're going to value the work that we're going to put into the relationship, we'll take you on as a client. And, it's been very beneficial from that standpoint, introductions to other family members. And you never know where someone's coming from. You never know someone's background. And to put a dollar sign or to identify somebody based on a dollar sign of net worth is just never proven effective for me. It's more developing the relationship and uncovering the other areas of opportunity that are out there.
So, Aaron, I'm really sensing a lot of passion, and uh, it seems like it translates into everything you guys do, and kind of the pride that you have there for what you do with clients that fit. What inspires your passion for delivering an exceptional client experience in the wealth management space?
Yeah, I believe a lot of it comes from, and I do believe this, we are all in this industry because we want to help people. We're passionate about investments, wealth management, or what have you, but we're passionate about people. You have to be passionate about helping people. And many times it comes down to just listening what they have to say. I tell almost everyone I work with what I really do at the end of the day is I manage emotion, I manage fear, and I manage greed. And it's not just around wealth, it's the uncertainty of life and the implications of the decisions that we make and everything. One of my favorite stories is when I was employed by that first bank-owned firm. I called in a senior advisor to come in with me to a meeting that I had scheduled. And he asked if I had pre-qualified them. I said, what do you mean by that? And he goes, well, do they have $1 million of investable assets? I said, I don't know. I just scheduled a meeting. I just thought we'd go from there. And to watch his interest go from lackluster to very interested just through the course of asking good questions about the person, we uncovered there was actually substantial opportunity there. And no one had ever asked him about that. And it really just comes down to being relational, and listening to what people have to say. Our industry, we're famous for trying to tell people all we know and how smart we are and how great our strategies are, this and that. And I think where many of us lack in general is the ability to just listen. And so many opportunities come about by just listening to the person across from the table, understanding some of their fears, some of their dreams, desires, and uncovering the opportunities from there. You just never know. Every opportunity is a clean slate. It's a clean sheet of paper, and you start there and just ask good questions and listen, and opportunities come about as a result.
Aaron, that was a great answer. It kind of brings up a thought for me. And I know you talked a lot about listening. You'll have background in communication, which I'm at fault of this. I think people are at fault of it, where we think of communication as our ability to talk and to actually give people information. How has your background in communication really allowed you or influenced your approach to financial planning and client relationships?
That's a great question because when I got my undergrad in communication, it was purely by happenstance. It was my freshman year in college, and I was a little bit of an older college student, but I had a professor in my public speaking class who talked about the importance of effective communication. And I had no idea you could even major in it. And so I went in undeclared and I walked out of that first class and I declared my major in communication. And in hindsight, it was a great decision because at the time I had no idea what I wanted to do after college. I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. And when I looked at the different job skills or the skill sets that employers looked for, at the time, the top 10 were all communication related. And so it struck me as, well, that might be a pretty good major, very broad. You can go a million different directions with communication. And what I learned throughout doing that was being able to effectively communicate really came down to your ability to listen and hear what the person across from the table was saying, to be able to identify some of the nonverbal behaviors that occur in communication, because I firmly believe what's not said in a meeting is way more important than what is said. We're all pre-programmed to say certain things, especially when you're talking about wealth. We're all pre-programmed to say certain things about our goals with wealth and our finances and this and that, but it's what's not said in a meeting that's actually more important, in my opinion. And, being able to go through that, not that I'm, a great communicator or whatnot, but being able to listen and uncover what might not be said in a meeting has helped me tremendously in navigating some of the complexities in a relationship.
Aaron, how do you view, or how does Fit view insurance in light of a client's global allocation or wealth strategy?
Well, that's a great question because, I've always believed our industry from a wealth management standpoint is really the combination of kind of the insurance approach to risk management and the investment approach to wealth management, or, building one's overall portfolio. And with my background in insurance, a lot of it has been just incorporating it in pieces, because I left insurance and joined the investment world, which was so investment centric. And the solution to all of life's problems were, well, we got to save more, invest more, achieve a certain rate of return, this and that. And when you really take a step back, my view was, well, I don't want to show up to a golf course with just a driver and a putter. Pardon the terminology. Again, I used it earlier, but I want to show up with a full bag of clubs, because every situation is different. And, when we take on young professionals, well, they haven't achieved the wealth yet, but they're on that trajectory too. Well, how do you protect their family? How do you incorporate and advise them in a way that provides them the level of certainty and protection that they need to ensure when life happens, if life happens? It's not even really if, it's when life happens. How are they protected to ensure that their family and their goals and objectives are met? And very rarely that can be achieved on the investment side, but it can be achieved on the insurance side. And so, when we sit down and talk to someone anymore, we start with a clean sheet of paper, and it's like, just tell us about yourselves. What are your goals? How do you envision, the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years going? And we start to map it out. And insurance really can kind of fill some of those gaps of uncertainty through the course of their career, through the course of their life, to protect their family, their kids, their spouse, whatever the case may be. So it's really not coming to the table with a preconceived notion of, oh, well, this is a young couple in their 40s and we know they're going to need this, this, and this, but to sit down and really just uncover what is it that keeps them up at night. What I've found over the years is the rate of return that they achieve, in their investments. That's not what keeps them up at night. It's the uncertainties. It's the what ifs. It's, oh, my parent or my mom or my dad was diagnosed with this at this age, and I'm coming up on it. I'm not quite sure, what to do. It's coming to the table with solutions. Ultimately, they make the decision as to whether they implement them or not, but it's our job to at least present it to them and say, you shared with me this, you're concerned about this. What if we were to add this piece into your overall wealth plan to ensure that if something happens, your outcome that you just stated you wanted to have is still met? And again, I think it comes down to just coming into each relationship, each engagement with zero preconceived notions and just an open mind and ears to hear what they're telling you, or what they're, the
Yeah, it
answers
definitely
to
takes
your
some experience, it
questions.
sounds like, to get to that point, right? Because that's not what they teach you and when you're coming up about how to work with clients. So, yeah.
Oh, no, 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 they definitely don't. I mean, my background in the insurance side, they teach you every problem in life is a nail, and they're going to
Mhm.
equip you with the best hammer in the world, and that hammer can take care of every problem. And yeah, and you
Sure.
see it on both sides of the business.
I love that, Aaron. I'm thinking maybe we lighten this up a little bit. So I've gotten calls a lot of calls lately where advisors are coming to me saying, I've got a client. They asked me, they saw on TikTok that there was, infinite banking. They want to do an IUL contract. And we're going to leave my answer to that for a different day. My question for you is, what's the most ridiculous financial request or piece of advice that a client has received from someone outside of, you as their advisor, that you just had to laugh at, or you threw your hands up and said, I can't believe this is actually out there?
Great question.
That's a tough one. It's not necessarily one that made me laugh or throw my hands up, but it was a pivotal point in my career. So shortly after graduating and getting licensed up, I was taking numerous calls a day, and I received a call from an orphan client, a client whose advisor had retired or left the business for one reason or another, and stated that he was ready to retire. He just put in his notice with his employer. He was starting Social Security, and he was ready to start drawing on his portfolio. And I thought, well, that's interesting, a portfolio. Okay. So I pull it up, and it was actually a life insurance policy that had lapsed. And I had to do some research on it. And what ended up happening is his advisor had suggested that he no longer contribute to his retirement plan with his company, but to put all of his money into this universal life policy issued in the early 80s when rates were quite high. It was illustrated at earning near 12%, and we all know what happened to rates through the 80s. And by the time he called me, he had paid every premium every month. He had not missed a premium at all. And the policy was lapsed. And when I got back on the phone with him and informed him of, what happened, he basically said, well, I guess I need to call my boss and ask for my job back because I'm not going to be retiring anytime soon. And while it's not funny, it was a pivotal point in my career because I committed at that point, if I'm going to be giving advice on such an important aspect, intimate aspect of one's life, I better understand the ins and outs and the complexities of it. I mean, at the end of the day, we deal with very, very complex, whether it's insurance, investments, it's very complex. There's a lot of ins and outs to it. And it was definitely a pivotal point in my career to commit to education and that kind of thirst for knowledge, to be able to give people good advice, sound advice when they need it, because oftentimes we give advice that may not come to fruition for many years down the road. And to be able to give good advice is vital. But yeah, that probably stands out as the most pivotal in my career.
Aaron, hey, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate you jumping on and being our victim here on CBS Spotlight. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, just really appreciate CBS and the relationship that we have with them. One thing that really stands out is when I come to you all with a client, you recognize it is my client. You come to me with solutions and opportunities, and really equip me to be able to go back to my clients with some great solutions and opportunities, and really serve as a great partner behind the scenes that allow me to do what I do.
Well, we appreciate you saying that. We appreciate your partnership as well. For everyone out there, I am Eric Alvarado.
And I'm Ted Hikes.
This has been CBS Spotlight, your friendly conversation for insurance and wealth advising come together. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.